Steelers Nation, take a deep breath, because what's happening in Pittsburgh right now goes far beyond a simple roster move. We're talking about a defense in transformation, a system being challenged, a new chapter that could redefine what this unit truly stands for. Behind the scenes, the atmosphere is intense. The coaching staff is pushing adjustments, speeding up the learning curve, and trying to fix something that goes way beyond what happens between the lines. And the big question is, are they asking too much, or just trying to fix the impossible? So before we dive deep into this breakdown, smash that like button to support the channel, and drop a comment that says, "Go Steelers, I believe." Because one thing's for sure, my friend, what's about to happen with this defense could change everything. Let's ride together, Steelers Nation. Kyle Duggar's first day in Pittsburgh didn't just mark the arrival of a new safety, it signaled the beginning of a deeper shift in how this Steelers defense is being reshaped. Earlier today, Teryl Austin spoke with reporters on the South Side and made it clear, the coaching staff is pushing hard to get Duggar ready for Sunday against the Colts. He's wearing number 29 now, already taking reps, chatting with Jabril Peppers, and diving into a playbook that's not easy to absorb in just a few days. But the tone from Austin sounded like a staff determined to make it happen, even if it's just on special teams or in limited packages. Still, Austin admitted there's a contingency plan if Duggar isn't up to speed. Jabril Peppers could take on that strong safety role, and Chuck Clark might be another fallback option. And yet, that list, as practical as it sounds, tells its own story about how much this defense is still searching for identity and consistency. Some fans have suggested moving Jalen Ramsey into more hybrid roles, using his physicality closer to the box, especially against dynamic tight ends like Tyler Warren. But from everything Austin said, that doesn't sound like a move we'll see anytime soon. That uncertainty speaks volumes, because when a team starts cycling through safety combinations midway through the season, it's usually a symptom of deeper issues, communication breakdowns, mismatched personnel, and a scheme that isn't aligning with the player's strengths. Austin's talk about mixing up coverages and being better in man-to-man might sound like typical coordinator speak, but anyone who's watched this defense knows the problem isn't just technique, it's structural. The corners are playing 10 to 12 yards off the line, even in man coverage, giving opposing quarterbacks easy, fast completions underneath. We've seen it week after week, slants, shallow crossers, and quick outs killing drives before they even start. That's not a player execution issue. That's a philosophy issue, and it's something Austin and Mike Tomlin have yet to solve. They don't seem to trust their older corners, Ramsey, Darius Slay, or even Chuck Clark when he drops into man coverage, to hold up and press. So instead of risking getting burned deep, they're giving massive cushions underneath. But when you combine that with poor tackling, you're just trading one problem for another, and the result is yards after catch piling up fast. The Steelers have been calling man-free blitzes nearly 30% of the time, which makes almost no sense when the secondary can't consistently hold up in man. If you're going to play that style, you need corners who can jam and recover, and right now, this group isn't built for that. The irony? When this coaching staff does lean into what they do best, creative zone rotations, post-snap disguises, and hybrid cover 3 looks, it works. It plays to their personnel, it confuses quarterbacks, and it keeps the defense balanced. Yet, for some reason, they keep drifting back to man-heavy game plans that leave them exposed. And that's where Tony Dungy's comments on Cam Hayward's podcast come into focus. The former Steelers defensive back and Super Bowl winning coach didn't mince words when asked how to fix Pittsburgh's defense. He pointed to the basics: communication, gap control, doing your job up front. His advice echoed the lessons he once learned from Chuck Noll. There's no magic formula. If we're struggling, we're not going to add more, we're going to do less. In other words, simplify. Stop overcomplicating the defense, get everyone on the same page, and execute. It's hard to argue with that. The Steelers' defensive playbook looks like it's been expanding while the players' understanding has been shrinking. The secondary has had constant miscommunication, especially on bunch and stack formations, too many blown coverages, too many wide-open receivers, and not enough trust between safeties and corners. You can't disguise coverages effectively when your players are confused about their base assignments. But Dungy's simplify everything approach has limits too. In today's NFL, playing static coverages, like running the same cover 3 or 2 high shells over and over, will get you carved up by modern quarterbacks. They're too fast, too smart, and too good at reading defenses. Austin and Tomlin have to find that middle ground, simplifying communication on the back end while keeping the looks complex for opposing offenses. Make it easier for your guys to play fast, but not easier for the other team to read what you're doing. And somewhere in that balancing act lies the future of this Steelers defense. Because right now, it's not just about Kyle Duggar learning the playbook or Jabril Peppers stepping up. It's about a unit that's lost its rhythm. The front still has talent. The secondary still has big names. But there's a disconnect between philosophy philosophy and performance, and unless that gap closes, it won't matter who lines up at strong safety this Sunday. So, Steelers Nation, what do you think? Is the real problem here the players struggling to execute, or is it a coaching staff that's asking them to do too much in a system that doesn't fit their strengths? Because if you ask me, it's starting to feel like this defense has all the right pieces on paper but no real sense of direction, and that's a dangerous place to be halfway through the season. The Steelers have spent years building this defense around versatility, guys who can shift between roles, handle multiple assignments, disguise coverages, and create confusion for quarterbacks. But versatility only works when everyone knows where they're supposed to be. Right now, it looks like too many players are thinking instead of reacting, hesitating instead of attacking. Kyle Duggar was brought in to help fix that, a hybrid safety with the physicality to stop the run and the range to cover tight ends. But even the most talented additions need structure. You can't expect Duggar to be a savior when the system itself is unstable. He'll bring energy, toughness, and intelligence, no doubt. But if the communication issues persist, he'll be reacting to chaos rather than creating it. You can feel that frustration bubbling up in the locker room, too. Veterans like Jabril Peppers are trying to lead by example, but constant reshuffling in the secondary wears everyone down. When corners and safeties aren't sure who's passing off a receiver or who's rotating deep versus rolling down into the box, it doesn't matter how athletic or experienced they are, they'll get exposed. And they have. That's what Tony Dungy was really getting at. His advice wasn't just about simplifying schemes for the sake of it. It was about restoring trust and cohesion. When Chuck Noll told his teams we're going to do less, he was talking about clarity, about cutting the noise. Right now, that's exactly what this defense needs. Strip away the excess, get back to fundamentals, and make sure every guy on the field knows his role. Once that happens, the creativity, the rotations, the exotic looks, the disguises, can come back naturally. But you can't build complexity on a foundation of confusion. Still, there's a counterpoint to Dungy's philosophy. This isn't the 1970s anymore. You can't just line up in base coverage and expect to survive. Quarterbacks process faster, offenses use motion on nearly every play, and if you show the same look twice, they'll exploit it. So Austin's challenge isn't just simplifying, it's evolving. Find a modern defensive identity that's simple enough for your players to execute but flexible enough to counter today's high-powered offenses. And while the focus has been on defense, let's not overlook what's quietly brewing on offense. Aaron Rodgers, yes, still getting comfortable in black and gold, spoke glowingly about second-year receiver Roman Wilson. Rodgers said he had a feeling Wilson would break out last week, and he was right. Wilson put up 75 yards in his first career touchdown, but more importantly, he showed polish, crisp routes, smart spacing, and the kind of awareness that earns a quarterback's trust. Rodgers even said he's coaching Wilson to his potential, not to what I'm seeing, which is a strong vote of confidence. And that's where things get interesting, because while fans have been clamoring for Pittsburgh to trade for a proven WR2, names like Jacoby Myers and Calvin Ridley keep surfacing. Rodgers seems content to build chemistry with the young core. Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin III have both flashed big play ability, and Rodgers himself mentioned that consistency starts in practice, exactly what he's seeing from Wilson right now. So maybe that's why the reported deal with Marquez Valdes-Scantling hasn't been finalized yet. According to Jordan Schultz, MVS's signing is expected next week, but insiders believe he's waiting to see what the Steelers do before the trade deadline. If Omar Khan makes a move for a big-name receiver, MVS might back off. If not, he could join the practice squad as a depth piece and locker room presence, especially given his chemistry with Rodgers from their Green Bay days. But Rodgers' comments about MVS were telling. He said, "He's one of my favorite teammates of all time, and that he still believes MVS can play at a high level." That's not the kind of praise you throw around lightly. It shows that Rodgers still values familiarity, and that could shape how this offense evolves over the next few weeks. Because let's face it, Pittsburgh doesn't need more bodies at wide receiver. It needs stability and defined roles. If Wilson continues to grow, if Austin stays healthy, and if George Pickens commands double coverage the way he can, this group might be more balanced than it looks on paper. Adding another veteran could disrupt that rhythm just as it's beginning to form. And that brings us to the question every fan is asking. What's the smarter move here? Stick with the young, developing core that Rodgers clearly believes in, or bring in a proven veteran to stabilize the offense for a playoff push? Steelers Nation, drop your thoughts in the comments. Should Pittsburgh trade for a WR2 before the deadline, or keep building with Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin III? And if you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned. We've got another video coming up next, diving deep into how the Duggar trade could reshape the entire defensive identity moving forward. Here we go, Steelers, because when you really think about it, this is the kind of crossroads that defines a season. On one side, you've got the temptation to make a splash move, trade for a veteran receiver, try to fast-track the chemistry, and push for immediate production. On the other, you've got the slower, more patient route, letting Rodgers continue to build with Wilson, Pickens, and Austin, trusting that the chemistry they're building right now will pay off down the stretch. And from everything we've heard from inside the locker room, Rodgers seems to be leaning toward that second path. That's why his praise for Roman Wilson hit so hard. He talked not just about the catches or the yards, but about the routes he runs when he doesn't get the ball, the subtle details that separate a good receiver from a great one. Rodgers notices that stuff, and when a quarterback of his caliber starts talking about trust and consistency, it means he sees something special developing. That's not a connection you want to interrupt with another roster shuffle. And let's be real, Pittsburgh's offense finally feels like it's starting to breathe. The timing between Rodgers and his receivers looks sharper. The tempo feels smoother. The offensive line is giving him just enough time to make those pre-snap reads and quick throws. And you can feel that confidence growing with every drive. Disrupting that rhythm for a trade might fix one problem while creating two others. Meanwhile, on the defensive side, Kyle Duggar's addition still feels like a move that could quietly transform this team. He's got that blend of speed, power, and instinct that Pittsburgh's been missing since losing that edge in the secondary. It won't all click overnight, but if Terrell Austin can simplify his system just enough to let guys like Duggar and Peppers play instinctively, fly to the ball, hit hard, and communicate cleanly, then maybe, just maybe, this defense can find its swagger again. And that's the key word here, swagger. For all the X's and O's talk, for all the analytics and matchups, what this team has really been missing is that old school Steelers